thank you for coming today to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a citizen of the United States who espoused love, brotherhood, and solidarity. We are gathered today to celebrate some of the students who have written essays about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., so you will be introduced to those students later in the program. At this point, we would like to have the official welcome extended by Mrs. Jan Hoke, Director of the West Virginia Equal Employment Opportunity Office. Before that, she spent 15 years as a legislative staff attorney and worked mainly for the West Virginia Senate. And Mrs. Hoke and her husband are friends of the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission because they have served with us before. She enjoys reading, hiking, writing, and producing funny short films. And she is married to Judge J.M. Hoke, who is here with her today. They have three daughters, and this is their description: 2 goony dogs and too many cats, according to her husband. Let us welcome Mrs. Jan Hoke.
Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2017 Stand Against Racism event, a nationally sponsored event started in 2007 by the YWCA and jointly sponsored today by the West Virginia by the Herb Henderson Office of Minority Affairs, the West Virginia Equal Employment Opportunity Office, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission Awards Committee. My name is Jan Hoke. I'm proud to be welcoming you on behalf of so many terrific people working in our state to achieve equality, promote diversity, and end racism. I'd like to start by thanking several people who are here today. Dr. William White, who is the director of the Herb Henderson Office. I understand that he may be ill, but he's terrific, and his executive assistant, the executive assistant at the Herb Henderson Office, Maisha Robinson, both terrific people to work with. The West Virginia EEO staff, I see James Rollins, our investigator and EEO specialist back there, and Beverly Reed, our EEO office manager, and the people that keeps us in line at the EEO office. This is such an important event for our state. We may look to teachers, politicians, or religious leaders to eliminate racism for us. And our leaders are certainly important. They have made and are making great contributions toward a just society, talking openly with each other and with our children about race, ethnicity, religion, and bigotry, asking and answering questions, beginning dialogues. All of these things are vital. As stated so eloquently during the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights in America, quote, "In the 21st century, the ability to communicate and work with people from different racial and ethnic groups will be as essential as computer skills for success and progress in the workplace." But today we celebrate especially the future of our great state and our great country, which is our young people. And to give you a special welcome, the young people, to today's event, I would like to introduce my husband, Judge Jay Hoke, Chief Judge of the West Virginia 21st Judicial Circuit, Lincoln Boone Counties. I got that right.
Thank you very much. Let me say a couple of things about today's Stand Against Racism. I see, because along with being a judge for 25 years, I actually have a master's degree in history and political science, which has been thrown in my face from time to time, and has to do, as I look out over our country, the state, and our communities, it makes me remindful of many of the things that we've gone through in the past that we are seemingly having to go through again, so that it's almost like we have to relearn many of the lessons that we've already learned historically. Some of our people have forgotten those lessons, and we need to bring many of those same lessons back to the forefront. I don't want to steal any thunder from Mr. Casey because he's the boss around here, but he'll be speaking to you in just a minute. But I want to let you know that I see it in the courtroom. I have seen it in our communities. Racism doesn't work, and it ain't right. That's one of the most important things that this country has come to understand over time. And as you listen to these young people talk about this, we need to support it. We need to reinforce it as much as we can, because that's one lesson that we don't need to relearn. Thank you.
Our invocation today will be given by the students from the Charleston Family Resource Center on the east end of Charleston. I want to tell you a little about the center before they come forward. The center has 16 years of experience developing sustainable youth programs, and it is a 501c3 nonprofit community-based organization, and they have successfully implemented community-based family support services. They have built partnerships, and they have a focus on senior services. Their mission is building bridges of opportunities. They offer many programs that fill the gaps as needed with subsidiary programs such as the Music Mentor Program, the Dance Program, Nature Learning Lab, among other innovation zones. Let the students from the Charleston Resource Center come forward at this time, and they will offer our invocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. I'm Pastor Hill. We are from the Charleston Family Resource Center. And our children today decided that they would not do a traditional type of invocation, but they decided to do something. They're going to ask that you would stand, and they're going to give a short selection, something that we all know in honor of this great day, standing against racism. Mr. Josiah, you're in charge. Amen. Thank you. Josiah, lead them back in. Go back that way. Lead them. Go back to your seat. Go ahead, Kenesha. Fall in line.
Thank you, Reverend Hill and the children from the Resource Center. We appreciate your being here today. The posting of colors will be done today by George Washington High School's ROTC. The Color Guard 4 students comprise the Color Guard with specific duties, Cadet Captain William S. Pickens, 10th grade, second year in JROTC, will be posting the national flag. Cadet Sergeant First Class Clarissa Lairs, 10th grade, will be serving as the right guard. Cadet Second Lieutenant Garrett Estep, 10th grade, will be serving as left guard. And Cadet Private First Class Claire Walker, 9th grade, first year in Junior ROTC, will be posting the state flag. Let us stand. Leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance will be the students from Piedmont Elementary School, which was established in 1969 and is a year-round school located in the east end of Charleston. They have 320 pre-K through fifth grade students, and the students participating today are members of Miss Amanda Haynes and Miss Laura Jensen's fifth grade class. The principal is Mrs. Susan Haynes. Hands up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Piedmont Elementary. The work of the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission has survived through the years because of the support of various governors of the state of West Virginia. Years ago, when Arch Moore was governor, some of us were appointed for the very first time as commissioners of the Holiday Commission, and we are so proud of the work that is continued. We are happy today to have with us the Chief of Staff, Attorney Nick Casey, who is Chief of Staff for Governor Jim Justice. At this time, he will bring remarks from the governor's office.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and I bring you two things from the governor. One is greetings. He is so happy that you were able to come and the kids were able to be here, and he also, though, extends his apologies. There's another matter. You may have heard there's a budget issue running around here in West Virginia, and there's been some things in the paper and press about it. So there are some issues that are upon us that made it difficult for the governor to be here. He may come in, and I can see his entry if he does come in. But I'm his chief of staff, so he did want to say greetings, but maybe more importantly, want to say thank you. And thanks for this. The struggle. Standing against racism is not, as we have heard from the good judge, and as you all know closely, it is not something that is done and now we're over it. It's something that happens every day, every place, almost every setting, and it's awful. But it's something that we are called upon to stand up against wherever it may be. That could be here, it could be on the street, it could be at home. But it's something that we have as an obligation, I think, to our fellow human beings, and as a father, to our children, and candidly as a member of West Virginia society, to other people's children too, to stand up for that. And you know, we know it's not always easy just to stand against racism, but I was reflecting upon the pledge that's contained in this, and so I hearken back, as some of you all may, to some years where certain people didn't have the right to vote. And in other years where certain people didn't have the right to live in certain subdivisions. And as a lawyer, it's unfortunately it's routine to look back at a deed from the great back in the Middle Ages of the 1950s and the 1960s, where there are restrictions based upon color, creed, and other national origin. And you sit there and look at that and say, how did that happen? How did that happen in 1950 or 1960? And it's been easily within my lifetime to get there. So we got to keep standing. But I think the pledge, when you look at what it talks about, it talks a little bit more about standing. As someone told me one time, sometimes you got to stand and sometimes you got to march. And marching's not a bad thing. And there's a real call to action in the pledge that's contained in the program. You pledge to challenge, and that's not standing, that's moving forward, expressions of racism, to actively object to the visible and invisible racism, and even to be aggressive. As example, don't patronize those folks, those people, those businesses that don't get it, because it sends a message. So sometimes we stand against racism as we should, and sometimes we got to march a little bit, and we've got to be active. And I would call upon you all to be active. I'd tell you to be active right where you're sitting, or maybe one floor up. Because the legislature, the Senate, and the House, they have real power. They have the ability, and they've exercised that ability in a very positive way to deal with racism over the years. And as we know, there are still things to be done. They still have that power. They need to hear from you. You need to be active. You need to march and talk to them. They won't resist it. They just need to be informed, educated, and inspired sometimes to do what's right and to figure out how to make it better to do that. The governor's office is just down there. You ought to march down there too when things aren't right, because the governor's office has some authority, some ability, and the governor tries to demonstrate that. You met Jan Hoke. The Equal Employment Opportunity Office is an office of the governor. The governor is responsible ultimately for what goes on there. They do a good job, but you can march down there and talk to us. Dr. White, who runs the Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs, he's part of the governor's cabinet. He's actually one of the governor's folks that's in there. And Dr. White and his predecessor have done a great job, but the governor is responsible for what they do. And if there's something that needs to be done, march down there and tell Dr. White, tell Ms. Hoke, or tell the governor. March that direction. And don't leave out the rest of our agencies, the EO, the Herbert Henderson, even pick one, the Department of Health, the State Board of Education. When you see matters that are not right or could be made better even if they're pretty good, don't just stand, march. March down to those agencies and let them appreciate that there are things that need adjustment, correction, or improvement. They won't be offended, and candidly, if they are, that's okay. Because if you've got the right idea and a better way to proceed, then they need to listen to you and to proceed in that manner. So do this for us. Accept the governor's apology for not being here, but also please accept his thanks. And know that this administration, through our governor, they stand with you all against racism. But on top of that, the governor and the folks that work for him, that answer him, they're prepared to march with you too. So tell us which way to march, help us see the light, and we'll help you all too. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the governor.
We're still waiting for the arrival of Mr. Ron Scott from the Wheeling YWCA, and when he comes, we will have him to make his remarks. But before I proceed further, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the commissioners who are here today from the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission, Mrs. Jacqueline Proctor, Dr. Julie Palace. And if there are other commissioners, would you please stand? Okay. We want to thank you for being in attendance with us today. At this time, I would like to introduce you to a group of Golden Girls. That's what I'm going to call them. The program lists them as senior age musicians, but the music that they play is so melodic. And these wonderful instruments, which are known as steel drums, were provided to this group by former Governor Wise, who made the instruments available to the New Covenant Community Development Incorporated through a grant from the state of West Virginia. And the history of these instruments, they were created in Trinidad off the coast of Venezuela in South America. And West Virginia University has one of the inventors of the steel drum on its faculty, and that person is Ellie Manette. Mr. Manette started his own steel drum company in Morgantown, West Virginia, which provided our pans that are going to be used today. We want to salute and pay tribute today to the founding director Dr. Catherine Sutphin, a professor and a member of First Baptist Church of Charleston, where I attend. Her steady leadership and excellent musicianship kept them together for these 13 years. And then I want to also give special tribute to Mrs. Linda Ely, who is a community worker extraordinaire. And we want to thank her. Thank her for her dedication and love to children and to our performers that will honor us with their presence today. Let us give a round of applause for Steel Drummond. Thank you so much, ladies, and we will hear from them later in the program today. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Julie Palace to come forward, and we will begin the presentation of awards. I do want to set the tone for the awards just a little to let you know that this particular year's essay competition focused on the letter that was written from the Birmingham jail when Dr. King was arrested and sent to jail because he protested segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. And after reading a letter that 8 white clergymen wrote where they criticized him and his activists, Dr. King decided that he had to write them back to let them know what was on his mind. And one of the quotes from his letter said, "Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outsider, agitator idea." And he went on to say further that anyone who lives within the United States can never be considered an outsider. And those words were true then, and they are still true today. And that was the kind of mind that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had, and that was one of the blessings that was given to him, for him to have the intellectual and spiritual aptitude to know what was going on in the world. And his life was cut short, as we all know. But through the students who continue to write essays about him, and then we also have a poster competition, we are hoping that his dream will live on. So at this time, we want to salute our winners, and what we will do, we will have the winners to come forward to get their award and their certificate, and then the first place winner will read their essay in each category. I do want to say in advance that the first place winner, Olivia Ward, in the high school category, which is the first one that we will be honoring, could not be here. She is a track star at George Washington High School, and they had a track meet today, and she sends her regrets. But our third place winner, Caitlin Kittinger, a junior at Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley, West Virginia. Would Caitlin please come forward? Our second place winner, Abigail Root, a junior at Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley, West Virginia. And then our first place winner, who could not be here today, Olivia Ward, a sophomore at George Washington High School in Charleston, West Virginia. We will get her award to her. Our third place winner, Kushal Modi, is an 8th grade student at Andrew Jackson Middle School. Is he present today?
He also won last year, too.
And Dr. Palace is stating that he was also a winner last year. Our second place winner, Harper Ollie, could not be with us today, but he is a student at Triadelphia Middle School. And the first place winner is also from Triadelphia Middle School, Erica Ettinger, a 7th grade student.
Congratulations. Turn around and get your picture. And here's your award.
And you could just put your award here, you can stay and read your essay. And we are going to be favored with the reading of her first place essay.
According to dictionaries, the definition of an outsider is one who does not belong or fit in. The definition fits, but 8 words cannot even begin to grasp how much so many people in the world suffer from bigotry and hatred because they are labeled as an outsider. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outsider agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider, wrote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There isn't a simple way to explain how someone's life could be changed if humans would learn the traits of acceptance, kindness, and love, so that every outsider in America could become an insider. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic letter from Birmingham jail voiced his beliefs on several issues of the civil rights movement, including the outsider agitator idea. Dr. King himself was considered an outsider because he was trying to make a difference through peaceful protest. The other clergymen thought he was meddling and stirring up trouble. His quote, as stated before, implies that the title of an outsider should not apply to anyone in the U.S. According to Dr. King, no one should have to suffer being an outsider, no matter their religion, gender, ethnicity, or skin tone. But half a century after Dr. King's era, people are still being labeled as an outsider. Being an outsider is to be on the outside looking in, to be watching through the window and hoping that someone would let you in. Most people have felt like an outsider sometime in their life. Because of my religion, I have sometimes been considered the outsider. Since I dress conservatively, I have had my clothes called babyish. Within my own group of friends, some have commented on how I'm so hard to corrupt. I certainly don't disrespect my friends, but I should not be pressured to act in a way they want me to. Some of the comments that have been said unknowingly, the speaker not understanding that it hurts my feelings. This does not happen anymore. My friends no longer disregard me because of my beliefs. For me, it took a few months to be accepted, but for Dr. King, it took a whole lifetime. Of course, not everybody is the outsider. An insider is the exact opposite, being the one on the inside. It's being comfortable and having all the happiness of being the insider. One time I recently felt like an insider was at a school dance. My friends and I were laughing and having a good time. That night, I am ashamed to say that I did not make an attempt to include anyone else in our group. It would have been simple to just call someone over who looked sad or lonely to sit with us. Then I really should have opened the door to let someone else inside. To conclude, no one should ever have to be an outsider. Humanity needs to follow the example of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and learn to accept people for what and who they are. If every insider would let outsiders in, every person in America would be an insider. So Americans, open the door. It only takes a small gesture to make someone's life better.
Thank you. And now in our elementary category, the third place winner, Brennan Maloney, a third grade student from St. Michael's Parish School. Is he in attendance? So let's give him a round of applause. Our second place winner, Olivia Scheller, fourth grade student from Ritchie Elementary School. And our first place winner, Liam Shin, a third grade student from St. Michael's Parish School. He is here with us today.
Congratulations.
Get your picture taken first. Okay. And are you ready to read your essay?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. And we'll hold that for you. Can you see?
That's going to be good.
Is that good?
Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that no one in the United States should feel like an outsider. He didn't want people to be left out. To me, being an outsider means to feel left out or excluded. You might feel this way because you are different. Some differences can be skin color, different religions, or not knowing how to do something. It makes you feel sad, frustrated, and sometimes like crying. I felt like an outsider in school one year when I didn't know anybody. It was only my second year at this school. The boys in my class were playing cards, and I wanted to play. play, and they said no. I felt bad for myself because as I watched them play, I thought it looked like fun. I didn't tell the teacher because they would have gotten in trouble and then they would have been mad at me. That day, I felt like an outsider. I couldn't wait to go home and leave that day behind. The boys in my class had made me feel frustrated. They weren't being very friendly. They wouldn't let me play because I didn't know how to play and they had already started. I really liked my school, but I knew it wasn't always going to be easy. Our stories are different, but Jackie Robinson must have felt like an outsider. He was a famous baseball player. At one time, he was excluded from the major leagues because of his skin color. Jackie Robinson was a great baseball player, but faced many obstacles in his life because he was black. First, he couldn't play baseball in the majors. When he finally got his chance, he was kicked off a plane on his way to spring training. Then he had to ride in the back of a bus, and finally, he couldn't find a place that served him food. Jackie never gave up, even though people didn't like him. He never fought back. He was kind and continued to play good ball. Sometimes it was hard for Jackie. He must have felt like an outsider. Games were canceled. Not all of his teammates liked him. Sometimes they pretended he wasn't there. Jackie was so fed up he wanted to quit, but he didn't because he wanted to help the black community so anyone could play baseball. Jackie changed baseball. He was the first African American to be in the pros. He played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. They won a World Series in 1956 against the New York Yankees. He made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Jackie Robinson and I experienced being an outsider in different ways. No one wants to be an outsider. Being an outsider makes you feel unwelcome and alone. It is not right to feel like an outsider. The next time I see someone who feels like an outsider, I will stand up for them. Like Martin Luther King Jr. and Jackie Robinson, I want to make the world a better place.
And here's your. Thank you so much, Liam. Let us give him another round of applause. I'm going to have to share his essay with some of my students at West Virginia State, for sharing that personal perspective and incorporating history. Thank you so much for the research that we know that you had to do to write your paper. Let's give him another round of applause. I would like to take a point of personal privilege, and I would like to have all of the family members who are here representing the essay winners, would you please stand so that we can applaud you? Without your guidance and support, this would not have been possible, so thank you for being here today. At this time, we will have two more selections from our Golden Girls. Still drumming, if you would please come forward. Thank you so much. We will have to have a special fund and send them to St. Thomas Virgin Islands so that they compete against those children there. What an outstanding job. Thank you so much. Mr. Ron Scott has joined us, and we're going to ask him to come forward. He is the Program Director of Cultural Diversity and Community Outreach, and the partnership that we have had with the YWCA goes beyond 2007. The essay competition has been with the commission since its inception in 1986, so we want to commend the Wheeling YWCA for a job well done. Mr. Scott.
Thank you guys for letting me come out tonight to talk, or this evening to talk to you guys. I first want to say thank you as well for everyone involved with the essay competition. It's always a tremendous sort of pride with us up at the Wheeling YWCA. It's a source of pride, so much so that a lot of the schools in our school system have included it as a part of their curriculum. Their school's involvement in making sure that their students submit in the essay contest is remarkable, and it's something that we applaud them for, and they would love to know that this kind of a turnout comes down to appreciate the students that have done it as well. I also wanted to say it holds a special spot in the CDCO department's heart because it's one of the few times that you see young people kind of pushing the cause to recognize racism as not an issue of a black or a white issue, but as a sickness or an illness that afflicts all of us in some way, shape, or form. And the only way to combat an illness or an affliction is with a remedy or a cure. And to put that in the mind of some of these young people is really something. And to see them do it creatively is even more impressive to me and my department as well. And I'm new to this position. I've only been at it about 2 months now. And one thing that can be said about me is no department, I never like to leave it the same as when I got there. So now that I'm in this department and I can work on a lot more things, I think we're going to be doing some tinkering with the essay contest, not to change it, but to expand it even more. Because with the new avenues of technology, we can make this an essay contest, short film contest. All sorts of technology can be used to allow these students to express themselves creatively with whatever the message is that we identify with Dr. King. So please be on the lookout for what next year's competition is going to look like. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak again, and congratulations to all the winners and all of their families. Thank you.
On behalf of the commission, we look forward to next year's competition, and we hope to see our students back again. And Mr. Scott, thank you for the changes that you're going to make as we move the essay competition well into the 21st century. To close our program, and before we close it, I would be remiss if I did not recognize Miss Maisha Robinson, who is our Executive Administrative Assistant to the Director. Ms. Robinson. She has brought to the commission many good ideas, and one of the things that we used to do, we used to struggle to make the certificates ourselves, and she has taken that off of her hands, and now that is all done through the governor's office. And so many little things like that mean so much. So thank you, Mrs. Robinson, for everything that you do. I would like to remind you that at the conclusion of our program today, there will be light refreshments in the reception room, straight down the hall and to the right. And at this time, to close our program, we're going to do three things. We're going to take part in reciting the Stand Against Racism Pledge. Our closing prayer will be brought by the Charleston Family Resource Center, and then we will have the retiring of colors by George Washington High School. So could we please stand, and on the back of your program is the Stand Against Racism Pledge. And if we could if you can't stand, just be seated. And let us read this together. I take this pledge fully aware that the struggle to overcome and eliminate racism will not end with a mere pledge, but calls for an ongoing transformation within myself and society. I pledge to look deeply and continuously in my heart and in my mind to identify all signs and vestiges of racism, to rebuke the use of language and behavior towards others born of such racism, to root out such racism in my daily life and in my encounters with persons I know and with strangers I do know, to expand my consciousness to be more aware and sensitive to the abuse of overt and subtle expressions, racism, and racial stereotypes. I pledge my challenge any expression of racism and racial stereotypes in my presence by my family, my friends, my co-workers, and those I encounter, to actively object to the display of visible and invisible racism and the use of racial stereotypes, exclusionary casting and storylines in television shows, movies, music, books, newspaper stories, radio talk shows, and other forms of popular culture, and not to patronize sponsors who underwrite such forms of popular culture or companies known to engage in racial discrimination and the perpetration of racial stereotypes. I pledge within my means to support candidates for public service who prominently, openly, and enthusiastically promote racial equality in all aspects of human affairs, and to actively support and devote my time to the YWCA as well as other organizations working to eradicate of our society. Would you remain standing, please, for the closing prayer and the retiring of the colors?
Once again, they're going to ask if you would participate with them as we close with the Lord's Prayer. Could you bow our heads, please? Josiah. Which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not, but deliver us. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. Can we just turn around here?